This is Mike Ward with Live Explore Real Estate in Petaluma. I'm with Lindsay Ward, owner of The Pine, 16-year stylist, and my wife. And this is the Ward Report. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. We're going to start with some rapid-fire true or false questions.
Of course we are.
Answer truthfully and accurately as you can. Anyone with a pulse and a minimum of one eye can be a stylist.
False.
Correct. When you get the hiccups, bullfrogs within a 2-mile radius hop towards our home thinking they've heard a mating call.
True.
Most aggressive hiccups that I've ever heard in my entire life. Happens once a week. That's also correct. You should not put up Christmas decorations until December 7th.
False.
You should not watch Christmas movies after January 1st.
False.
It's Christmas 9 months a year in our household. If our two boys had spirit animals, what animal would better represent their personalities? A chilled turtle. B, raccoons who also happen to be affected with rabies.
Raccoons for
B,
sure.
100%. No chill turtles in our household. Before we went on our first date, your best friend turned to you and said, have fun while it lasts. He's fun, but it won't last more than a couple months.
True.
That is true. Molly Vollmer.
Yep.
All right. You've passed all 5 correct. We're going to the bonus round. You are shipwrecked on an island with a TV powered by the sun. You get one movie or TV series to watch for eternity. What is it?
This one's really, really hard for me.
Yeah, I bet.
I think like right off the bat, I say New Girl, which you would know that.
Yeah.
I watch that all the time.
Yeah.
But if I was allowed a couple more, top 4?
Top 4.
I'm not going movies. I'm going series. Movies are too minimal. I want a lot of options. New Girl, Mad Men, Sex and the City, Girls.
Why Mad Men?
Oh, I love Mad Men.
Tell me more.
I love Mad Men. I love the costumes in Mad Men. I love how they totally recreated that time frame. I love that it's very different from the time frame that we currently live in.
Yeah.
I love the drama. I love Betty Draper, and I love Don Draper.
You do.
I do.
Nothing like Don Draper. I don't smoke. I'm not as good looking. I'm not as tall. I'm not as successful, but that's okay.
Well, you love to hate Don Draper. Like
You do.
You do. Over time, at first you're like, this guy's just the worst. And then over time, it's just part of his character. And he's like doing the best with what he's got.
It got weird in the end for me.
It did. But
50s is a very romantic time period, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's smoking, everybody's drinking. It's just the dress, I feel as well. Then it got into that hippie time period and they lost me there.
well, yeah, I think it's like really hard once him and Betty broke up.
Yeah.
Because the more I've watched the show, because I've seen it probably 6 times all the way through, I do like his second wife, Megan, more now.
The French woman?
Yes.
Yeah. The awkward song, the singing,
Zooby, zooby,
the zooby, zooby, zooby. That was uncomfortable for everyone who watched it. No one liked that scene. No one. I don't care how big of a fan you are. But beyond that, she does a good job.
I grew to like her, though, because I realized what she resembled for Don and what Don resembled for her.
Yeah.
And it was like change for him. It was unfortunately all the change he wanted for himself. He thought he was going to get it through Megan, but really he just kind of resorted to true Don Draper ways.
There's been thought put into it.
Yeah.
I respect that. You are going on a 30-day juice cleanse. What is the last meal you eat before it starts? And this doesn't have to be like one item. This can be from different restaurants. This can be homemade. It can be a combination of homemade and different restaurants. So like whatever you want in that meal, what is that last meal?
Ooh. If I'm going like a dinner, I'm going to go Stark's steak, but with like all the Caesar salad, the bread, the oysters, the loaded baked potato.
Oysters, big or small?
Small.
Always. Yeah. The big ones get so weird.
I'm going to go for the prime New York medium plus.
Bone in, bone out.
I go bone out.
Yep.
But then I'm not going to do dessert at Stark's. I'm going to then have something from Stellina.
What?
Anything from Stellina.
Anything. What's your go-to cookie?
Ooh.
Stellina comes up a bunch on this podcast. I think I've had, the last 4 podcasts, it's come up 3 times.
Well, you just got me that chocolate chip cookie I'd never had from them.
The sea salt?
Yeah, that was really good.
Pretty good.
I love the crinkle Noni's cookie,
Yeah.
the chocolate crinkle cookie. But I also love the Italian breakfast cookie. But I wouldn't pick that as my last cookie. That's like a cookie when I'm like trying not to be totally bad.
I brought those cookies home just to seem like a good husband before this podcast. So you brought it up and it worked perfectly.
It did.
That was my strategy. The all chocolate one's pretty good with the chocolate and the chocolate too. What is that called?
It's like the Noni's crinkle cookie, I think.
Yeah, it is pretty good. Okay, so Starks, generally Starks, and then dessert from Stellina.
I think so, because Starks provides for a really good meal all the way around.
Yeah.
Starter, salad, steak, potato.
We frequented a lot before kids. A lot. I would say 4 to 5 times a year, 6 times a year.
I would say at least.
That's when you could bring your own bottles of wine in without a corkage fee. The glory days, the salad days.
That's when you could get out at
160,
under
150,
200.
under 200, and it's 250 now with 100%. Yeah, that's 10 years difference.
Yeah.
Almost like a 70% increase. Crazy. You can live without working in any city in the world for 6 months. Where is it and why?
Florence.
Why?
So do I have to stay in the city, or am I allowed to enjoy?
You can travel. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Florence, because I love Florence. I feel like I could really spend a lot of time there and not get tired of it. And then you have all the surrounding area that I've never been to that you could just bus out to and go drink wine and go stay in a chateau, whatever.
Honeymoon was in Florence?
Yep.
What did you like most about it?
I liked that it had culture and museums and everything like that, but it didn't have a huge hustle and bustle to it.
Yeah.
I felt like everything was very walkable.
Yeah.
Everyone was really friendly. The food was really delicious, but it wasn't over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It was very casual. Great coffees, great pastries.
And too much information, but solid shot that our first boy
he
was born in Italy.
He was already in there. Yeah, he came with us.
You're saying he came with us. I feel like it was. I feel like the story becomes more romantic if it was in Italy.
I know, but that's physically, if you're talking about that's physically impossible.
From a time perspective?
Yeah.
Mathematically?
He was already in there.
I'm telling everybody Florence for dual citizenship. All right. We're going to go into our regular questions. Great answers on all of those. Let's just start at the beginning. So what's the moment for you? Like what's your eureka moment, I guess, when you realize like, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be a stylist. This is the path and the journey I'm going to walk. Was it like one moment? Was it over a period of time? Did it develop, or was it automatic?
I always wanted to be a stylist. I think I told my mom when I was like 8 that I wanted to be a stylist. That was always my plan. I'm sure my parents didn't take that super seriously. I think kids go through all different phases of what they want to be when they grow up. By the time I got to high school, I was still committed to that idea. I'm not going to say my parents didn't hate the idea, but they did want me to get a college education first.
Yeah.
So getting out of school, I knew I wasn't going to go straight into beauty school. I did at one point, I went straight to the JC to try to start like chipping away at, college. And I did go to the beauty school at 19 and did like the orientation. Because I wanted to go see it. And then I felt like if I was comfortable making that plunge, I was going to go like with my sales pitch to my parents of like why I should get to go. Yeah. And I went and I got completely intimidated because in the orientation, they told me that 80% of girls who complete the program aren't doing hair within 5 years. And so then it really got me second guessing myself of whether or not I was going to be happy doing that career forever. And I think that was like the concern for my parents was going into the trades and then, doing a huge chunk of time in it and then being like, what if, or what could I have done, or do I want to do something else, and not having any sort of foundation of college education. So I went back to the JC, and after like probably 4 years, I finally got my AA in business. And as I went back for my last semester at school, that's when I decided that I really wanted to commit to doing hair and not transfer to a UC or a state school.
I think you're naturally curious as a human. Is there any regret that you didn't transfer or finish out another 2 years? Nothing?
No.
Never second guess it?
I think it was that in that course of time, I was working for a cosmetics company and I was really enjoying that at that time. And then I realized like corporate isn't for me. But what I did still love was like the art of doing makeup. And so then I started doing a lot of weddings and special event makeup on the side. And it brought me a lot of joy. And I think that's why too, my parents saw how committed I just already was to that industry and how much I loved it and how much joy it brought me. And that's why when I proposed to them of just getting my AA and then going to beauty school, they were totally behind me on it. And I think I'm glad they made me do school to the level that I did, because I know it wasn't for me, and it kind of like sealed the confirmation for me that I did want to go do hair and I didn't want to do anything else. And it made me really, really committed to beauty school and getting
I'm surprised the weddings didn't just kill the career right there.
I did weddings for I think I did weddings for like probably like 15 or 16 years.
The intensity.
Yeah.
I mean, far more good than bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you're working a wedding.
Yeah.
Because that's the day, right, for one human being, and it's the day for that human being's mother.
Yeah.
You don't deal with the groom side, but in terms of the bride, like any like war stories that you can think of from not the bride, but more the mother of the bride. What percentage of bad story? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not trying to come down on weddings, but like, is it more the bride or is it more the mother of the bride where the intensity comes from at a wedding?
Me personally,
from your standpoint,
I had more intense interactions with the mother of the bride than I did the bride. I like to think I was really blessed, and all the years that I did weddings, I worked with like a lot of really amazing women. And what was really cool was, you do one girl's hair and makeup for the wedding, and they have 5 friends who are bridesmaids, and you do their hair and makeup for the wedding, and then they get married, and then they call you in. And so I really got to follow these friend groups through multiple years because I started with one. And so then you get to know these girls, and then it becomes really comfortable and really fun because you have a connection with them and they're not just a total new person. Also, being from this area, a lot of people I worked with, I didn't necessarily know them, but it was like a referral from a friend, or there was always some sort of loose connection to the people. When working with just like the general public, I had some interesting interactions with people.
And how do you handle that? Like when you're in a rhythm, right? And you're focused and there is that intensity over your shoulder. Well, I know you can handle it because that's me in a kitchen when you're cooking, right? You deal with my shit all the time. I'm always over your shoulder telling you what salt to put in. But you're focusing on, again, this woman's day. That's her day. Mm-hmm. And then you're dealing with this other energy over your shoulder. Was that like a early life lesson for you of just how to balance stress and how to handle it all?
I don't know if it's part of my personality where I like to think of myself as a little go with the flow.
At times. At times.
But yeah, I think it's about not getting swept up in that energy and then managing it. And I learned to insert myself in times when I needed to insert myself, but to do it in like the most gentle of nature that I possibly could. I would say most of the time it's about just keeping the spirits up and like not putting out a negative energy and not getting frustrated. It's like get in your car and then get frustrated. But the one I would say gnarly interaction I had, I didn't react. I didn't react at all. And it was to the point where after everyone's like, oh, the bride's like, oh, like, sorry, I yelled at you. And it was just like, it's cool.
Okay. Good talk.
And they're like, yeah, you took that so great. And it's like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like the bride's yelling at me like over something completely ridiculous, which I know it's ridiculous. Everyone around us knows it's ridiculous, but to her, it's very important. So, and I think also being someone who did weddings as much as I did, I think my last season of doing weddings, I did 36 in one summer. Mm-hmm. I know the dynamic of a wedding. I know the dynamics of the relationships. I know the structure of like the morning. I'm so seasoned. So it's kind of important for I'm not a wedding planner, but you're such a huge part of the morning of the wedding, of being kind of a little bit of a point person, shit starts to get sideways, then you
balance
kind of
it
are
out.
like, yeah, oh, hey, like rule number 1, when stuff's going on, don't ask the bride a question. Never. And I've had to say that to the bridesmaid. I'm like, don't ask her anything, because at this point you're just making her feel overwhelmed.
She's locked in.
She doesn't know where that sign goes. It doesn't even matter where the sign goes. Just put the sign somewhere and move on. But you asking her is stressing her out right now, and then it's going to change the entire energy of the morning.
In those rock bottom moments, like there's not a lot of them, but just that circumstance that you brought up with that tougher bride, was there ever a moment where you got back in the car and you said, you know, I'm thinking about another career path, or I could see myself in another career path? Or was it always, nope, this is what it is, and I'm going to come back better the next time?
Yeah, no, I never did.
Never questioned it.
I loved him. I loved him until I had kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? What changed?
I didn't have the emotional bandwidth for it anymore. I think I had so much patience. I had so much energy. I could get up in the morning. I could be up at the, crack of dawn, packing everything, getting ready, go there, do 13 bridesmaids, be there till 4:00, barely have drank water, barely have eaten food. But then you get to like come home and decompress and pour a glass of wine, hang out, go to bed early, whatever. You can like recharge your battery. You don't get to do that when you have kids. And so I learned pretty quickly after we had Gunnar. I think I arranged myself to do just a handful of weddings while I was on maternity leave, because I felt like it was a good opportunity to make some money. And I came back feeling so emotionally depleted because I had to keep that energy up and I had to like be there for that person. And then I couldn't show up for like my own family.
Then you had a 2-year-old at home just peppering you with questions.
Pepper.
The most questions asked by a 2-year-old in the Sonoma County.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
That guy and no matter what it is, just hammering you one after the other. It is a lot of energy.
And you just want to show up for your kids. They're excited to see you. They haven't seen you all day and you want to be excited to see them. And I didn't feel like it was fair for them. I didn't feel like it was fair for me. And then I also, I lost the passion for it. Doing weddings used to make me so excited, and I felt like I was just as excited for that person to be involved in their day, and I felt really honored. And after I had kids, a lot of it just seemed, I don't want to say unimportant, but sometimes frivolous and stuff that I would have a lot of patience for in that day. I couldn't relate to it anymore.
Yeah.
It was unrelatable.
There's a time and a place for it.
Yeah, I was on a different journey in my life.
You had a good run.
I had a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really good run.
And I'll come out of retirement here and there.
Will you? Oh, you will? Yeah, you just won this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Long-time clients.
Long-time clients, normally very mellow weddings. Also clients that I have like a pretty strong connection with. Like I'm not gonna jump back out there ever again and start working with the general public. But yeah, for longtime clients, I like to be there for them on their day because I am invested in them because we have a friendship essentially.
Okay. And now shifting to your stylist career, right, which is your main focus now, and we'll go into your ownership of the Pine and that whole transfer. But as a stylist, you've learned exponential amount of information over the last 16 years from your first cut and color to now, right? Yeah. You like that cut and color? I can throw out terms, balayage. I know my terms. I hear them. So first cut and color 16 years ago or around that to now, if you could go back today, you get in a time machine. We just watched Back to the Future last night. Convenient, right? 1985. Michael Fox. Our kids watched it and loved it. So you can go back to that time 16 years ago. Is there anything you would change in the way that you did that first cut and color? What have you learned over the last 16 years? Do you feel like at that time with what you knew, you obviously did the best you could, but going back, would you have approached it differently?
I can actually remember perfectly my first cut and color. I'd like to say that I wouldn't necessarily, obviously technique, style, ability has changed. So I can 100% probably could have done a better application of the color. But my first client was with me for 15 years,
Yeah.
So I like to think in that respect, I already had that down of my way of like connecting with the client and obviously giving her what she wanted to the best of my capabilities. Now what I know about color, which also wasn't even, that kind of education wasn't even available back then. I would change the actual application, but I don't know. I don't have a lot that I would change about that first color. There's been other colors that I would change. Of
course. Yeah. 16 years.
Yeah.
Well, I want focus on one point in that, the connection, because that's something you just mentioned, right? Like there's a way to apply, there's a skill with being a stylist, you know, the cut, techniques behind the cut, the color, application. But I think just from knowing you this long period of time and hearing all your different stories, connection is a major part of being a stylist. A major part. I mean, you're a psychologist of some degree.
Yeah.
So how important is connection, and how do you establish connection with each client, especially the clients who, listen, if you put 100 people in a room, 5 of those people do not want to connect from a statistical standpoint, right? They don't want to talk. They want to come in, get the work done and leave. How do you connect with those clients?
I think it's all about finding either something in common with them. I've noticed like truly, I like to think I'm a good listener. I have to be a good listener. I listen to people all day. People want to be, even if someone doesn't necessarily want to connect, they want to be seen and they want to be heard. So I think it's really important that when they are talking to me and whatever they're telling me about, that I am remembering what they're telling them. I like old school theories where like you were supposed to like write little notes in their color card of like things that you talked about to like remember the next time. I know you're not going to believe this, but I'm actually very good at remembering things with my clients. I know I'm not good at remembering
on the subject
anything else.
Yeah.
So I tell my clients all the time is I'm absolutely terrible at remembering dates,
birthdays,
like
what to bring, what to get at the store. There's a list. Yeah.
But I guess when there's a person connected to it directly, I am really good at remembering conversations. I think it comes from a really genuine space within me of wanting to get to know the person. Shockingly enough, I do think sometimes that I have some clients that have been with me for a really long time. They've seen me through 4 different spaces. And like when I think back to some of those clients, they're actually the people that I'm surprised they're still with me. Only because I think in the beginning I felt like I had a harder time connecting with them, because sometimes I'll connect with people right off the get-go. And sometimes I feel like it will take like a year for them to feel comfortable with me and to feel like we have a connection outside of just hair and like me being the service provider. So I think that speaks to the question that I obviously can connect even with someone who's a little harder to connect with. It's just you have to be patient and take time.
How do you establish those connections on the days when you don't feel good, right? So I remember one of the things I taught for 7 years, I taught high school, and I remember there's a lot of good days, but if you're off for any reason, if on a Sunday night you go out with a couple buddies and have 3 beers, which is like my max now, right? It may be 2. And you're just a little bit off, the amount of energy that you have to put out to the world is exponential, right? It's like a 3x because you're not feeling great and it's not flowing. It's not natural. So on those days when it's not natural, right? And everyone has those days.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you step up to make the client experience the best one for them?
I think you really got to push through, man. You absolutely have to push through it. You still have to forge forward. I feel like now that I have an assistant, I feel like I do.
No big deal, assistant.
I lean on her sometimes. Her and I have a really good dynamic, just the 2 of us. And so sometimes if I'm just feeling, I'm getting through a day and I've had 6 clients and I'm a little bit worn out, she's connected with a lot of my clients too. Like she's not the assistant who's just seen and unheard. She talks with them a lot and spends her own time with them. And I'll kind of bring her in with me, or we'll be talking about something and I'll bring her in on the conversation. And I feel like she's really good at sometimes even reading when I need a little bit of help. Maybe I'm running behind and I need to be able to get through something and it's a little bit challenging because talking and doing what I do obviously makes me slower. So I will resort to her sometimes. But honestly, I feel like sometimes I just power through it. And then when I go home, I'm absolutely dead.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to give you props on this, because from the outside in, before I was married or before we were together, I was always like, hey, you cut hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you were on your feet 8 to 10 hours a day, not sitting down, not eating properly, because you don't really have time to eat.
Yeah.
If you're off, like, it's a war. Like, it's a battle.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot tougher from my perspective watching you come home and then just melt, like literally melt into a couch.
Yeah. I also think too, it's really crucial to be part of a really good team. You know how you can get energy from other people's energy. You know, I had just a hard week last week because, you know, Marissa was out sick for a couple of days, which is always really hard because then I'm, you know, trying to do the job of two people, but I'm just one person. And so I had put out a lot of energy all week. And I think sometimes just being around all the girls in the salon and being around their energy and everyone's laughing and having a good time, it can almost like fill my cup up to get me through the day.
How'd you build that team? Because that is something I have been impressed with, going in and knowing all the ladies that work with you. There's 6 full-time stylists and an assistant now. Yeah,
there's 6 including me, and then I have an assistant, and then we have Missy.
And all walks of life. Like, absolutely, from a personality, lifestyle standpoint, they're all different, but they mesh. And every time I'm in there, there's a good vibe. And every time I'm in there, they're approaching me. They're all outgoing in their own ways. They're all interested. How, like, in terms of the hiring process, right? Or bringing, it's different, right? They're 1099 employees. But creating a team and building an environment for someone to be successful in, if you interview 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, how do you find the one that's going to mold into that team?
It's a good question. And also, I forgot about our Shlee. Shlee is there too, our little drop-in.
She's well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, so when Barb proposed with me purchasing the Pine, and I think it was June of 2021.
Mid-pandemic.
Yeah.
2 kids.
2 kids.
Both young. Right? 4 and 2.
He probably, I mean, you're better
right around there.
I am.
3 or 4.
So we had, we just had fall off from the pandemic and whatnot. And so it was essentially her, me, and then we had 2 other girls with us. So there's 4 of us, but she was not living here anymore. So she was just dropping in. So there's essentially 3, including me. We didn't purchase it until January. So I had time to kind of think about like how I was going to execute the hiring. We decided that we weren't going to start trying to hire when the ownership transfer wasn't official, because it didn't make sense to hire people and then be like, oh, we're under new ownership. So when January of 2022 came and we officially owned it, Barb had sent me this podcast, and it was by 2 stylists who own a bunch of salons all over. And they had done this exact podcast about hiring. And it was to break down how in our industry, it was considered a little taboo to headhunt. It was considered tacky. It was like looked down upon. And they started breaking down the reasons of why it was totally valid.
And by headhunting, you're saying like seeing other stylists in other businesses locally and saying they would be a good fit.
Yes.
Yeah.
My generation of stylists, you never did that. You put an ad back, in my day, you put an ad on Craigslist or something and then saw who came to you.
Which usually wouldn't be the cream of the crop.
No, it's not necessarily. And so their whole point was that in every other industry, headhunters exist. And that if companies and businesses are taking care of their employees, they're not going to leave. But if they're not, and or if that person just feels like they need something different, they're entitled to that. And I think I know I was personally intimidated, when I even reached out to Barb to work there. And Barb and I have been friends since high school.
Yeah, talk a little bit about Barb, right? She established one of the best, I'm not going to say the best because there's a lot of great salons in Petaluma and I know like half the owners.
Totally.
But one of the best salons in, Petaluma, right? And is known for that in Northern Marin and Napa and Sonoma.
Now LA, because Barb has taken another path and gone to LA and is working with very notable, movie stars and models and what have you.
how's your relationship and role helped shape both you as a stylist and then helped the transfer of you as a business owner? Because you said there was an intimidating aspect to Barb because she is known to be one of the better stylists in the area.
And she demands excellence in the best possible way. Barb has helped me in my career in more ways than one. Even before the Pine, she has always given me guidance, given me advice, and she attacks her business in a very fearless way. And I would say I'm a lot more reserved. So it's very good to have that friend in your corner being like, you can do it, and almost the one who believes in you a little bit more than you believe in yourself sometimes. So our paths had crossed even before the Pine, in the sense when she was working in town and had been here for quite some time. She decided to move to the city and start working there. And she proposed that I take over her chair and work with her clients that weren't going to be following her to the city. And that was how I got into Petaluma, because I had been working in Santa Rosa for 7 years. So it started there, and then I became her client. And so she was doing my hair for years. And so we've always had a really good friendship. And I've always looked to her as a mentor. Like, I've always looked to her for advice. So when she had posted that they were hiring, I had just finished, I had signed up to do this online course called The Magic of Money Making. And it was with Jamie C. And she was a stylist in Connecticut. And the way she kind of modeled it was saying, you know, as creatives, we're not always good at running our own businesses. So here's a way to be better at it. And when I started doing that is when I realized that, yes, I could be better with my money, but more importantly, I wasn't as inspired as with where I was in my career and how I wanted more. And right as I was in the middle of that process is when Barb posted that she had an opening. And I remember being very nervous. I think I told you.
I remember. Yeah, I remember the conversation.
I said, I don't know if I'm the right fit. I don't know if what she's looking for. And you're like,
you're the right fucking fit.
Yeah, you're crazy. You guys are homies. Like,
Yeah.
what else could she be looking for? And I remember I messaged her and I said, hey, you know, I just saw your post. I'd love to get a chance to talk to you about it. She was in Yosemite. She called me from breakfast, and I gave her my whole organized spiel of what I wanted and how I wanted more, and how I wanted to be in a space where I was going to be challenged and someone was going to push me to hire, because I know I can't always be held responsible to push myself to hire. And I go on, and I started off with, if I'm not the right fit, I'm not going to be offended. I don't want our friendship to be affected by it, and I'll totally understand. And I got done with my whole spiel, and she was like, are you done? And I was like, yes. She was like, I asked you at your last hair appointment if you were happy, you know, where you're at, and you said yes. And I was like, well, I mean, I thought I was happy, but I was actually just like a little complacent. You know, I was comfortable. You know, I didn't have any major issues where I was at, but I wasn't inspired. You know, I wasn't feeling growth. And I had this huge yearning for growth. You know, Dax was like had just turned 1. I had been in baby years for like 3 years.
The dark times.
Yeah. And I wanted to like spread my wings. Yeah. And so she was like, oh my God, of course, like, you're my first pick. And so, yeah, she held my hand through 2020 when I was supposed to be there and I couldn't be there. Yeah. And I had many phone calls of me crying, being like, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm scared. And yeah, she was just always like this huge support system for me, which I can't say in the industry I don't think you see it all the time.
Yeah. Well, and also for me outside looking in, like, what a partnership in terms of strengths and weaknesses, right? We won't say weaknesses, but in terms of strengths, like Barb from a creative standpoint, and Barb like with social media, and Barb with what she can do, and you with your energy and creating a team, and, you know, which is just is important, right? Yeah. Is those components and the energy that you bring with all those ladies on the daily, like you guys do, it's a heck of a partnership. And she is still part of the Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a creative standpoint.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that she always will be. You know, when she proposed to me of purchasing it, first of all, I think that was I was just so honored that she even trusted me with it. I could have never have imagined that. I told her, when she came up with the idea, I said, if you're looking to sell the pine because you want to just like totally move on and start your whole new career and kind of be done with it, I don't have a huge interest in that because that felt like a little bit too much for me to bite off and chew. And I knew the areas that I was lacking is really where her strengths are and what does make the pine so magical sometimes. And so she was like, well, no, my perfect scenario is that I can still be a part of it because it's my baby. It's like my firstborn. I grew it from the ground up. Like, I don't want to just walk away from it. I just don't want to run a business anymore.
Yeah. And funny enough, like unknowingly for both of you guys, like any major corporation sells in the world, that owner stays on as a consultant.
Yeah.
The majority of the time. Like that is the way it's done. And you guys naturally did that.
Yeah.
With her being there and then, having the freedom to do what she wants.
Yeah.
And then you really taking on more and more responsibility. And it's worked out phenomenally, know, and she's still a part of it. And
yeah, she keeps us on our toes. She calls us out. She's always there kind of motivating us from a distance. She's great at bringing back everything that she learns in LA, bringing it back to the stylist, and just honestly keeping everyone really inspired.
Sure.
And that is a very hard thing to do in hair. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a constant, inspiration that's needed. So I'm going to bring up a statistic to you right now. And I want to know your reaction to it. Hair is a sacred thing for, I think, the majority of human beings that have it, right? Everyone that has hair looks at their hair multiple times a day. Well, on average, women look at their hair 34 times a day. So 34 times a day, a woman looks in the mirror at her hair. If you crunch those numbers and do a cut and color every 3 months, that means that woman is looking at her hair 3,060 times before you see her again. If there's a mistake made or that hair isn't up to the standards that woman wanted, 3,000 times she looks in the mirror and says,
I don't like it.
I don't like it. I don't like it. How do you deal with that? That's pressure, right?
Yeah.
And not only is it pressure, but what I've also learned from you is someone comes in with expectations and their hair can't meet those expectations.
Yeah.
From a biological standpoint.
Yep.
I want this, but your hair can't do that.
Yep.
So then, like, how do you deal with that?
Well, I think that number one is just what you pointed out. Managing expectations is the most important. Consultation, they go over it. I don't think that it was something I was taught in the beginning, and it's something I've learned a lot about now. You need to be so honest with the person sitting in your chair right off the get-go. You need to manage their expectations. I'm not saying shoot them down and tell them something's not possible, but I think it's about being really honest about what you think you can achieve, but not being like, yes, of course you can have that. It's going to be great and we can do it all today. That's where I think a lot of people go wrong. And that's why sometimes maybe someone doesn't even not like their hair. It's just not what they thought it was going to be. Sometimes they aren't happy.
What do you do in that situation? I know you hold it with you because I see you at home, right? If someone doesn't happen often. It's very rare.
Yeah.
But you wear that like a jacket.
I do.
So what do you do? How do you combat that? What do you do for the client? Then what do you do for yourself?
Well, I'm still learning what to do with myself, for being really honest right now. That's something I struggle with, is probably being really critical of my work and really obsessive. I wear it home. I think what I've learned is the most important thing is that the person feels seen and validated, that the stylist doesn't come off defensive. It's not necessarily that it's anyone's fault that it happened. It's what we're going to do moving forward to make it better. And so I always try to make sure there's a super open line of communication and people are really comfortable coming to me with it. Because I think that's the biggest thing, is sometimes people don't like their hair and they don't even tell their stylist because they're too scared. And it's not that they're scared of the stylist being mean. I think they're scared of hurting the stylist's feelings. And I think, hair is an art. It's not a science, and perceptions are all different. And sometimes I look at a photo and I see one thing in it, and you look at a photo and you see another thing of it. And so much of the inspirations are always coming from photos. So I think it's important, and I've noticed it goes really well with my clients because we will joke about it sometimes when things didn't go our way, of making it really light. And if someone texts me or messages me or calls saying like, okay, cool, like come in, let's get you in sooner than later. Let me see, let's talk about it, and let's figure out how we can make it to where you're more comfortable in it. Obviously that comes with parameters of, you don't want to be abused in that situation, but I don't find myself getting abused in that situation. I feel like when people come to me, it's very honest, that there's like little things that they wish were a little bit different that are always normally very easy for me to fix.
So, I mean, and that's more from a stylist perspective on, is there a mistake?
Oh yeah, there's mistakes.
Where do most mistakes come from in terms of, is it the application of color? Because you're pretty good with scissors, right? And I'm sure you can make a mistake, but you can correct that pretty quickly. But is it all application of color?
I would say it's mostly application of color, maybe with cuts. There's minor tweaks that need to be done. When a stylist styles someone's hair, it's normally very different from how they style it at home. And that's why, again, consultation is so important, is when you're talking to someone and they're giving you a photo of this gorgeous cut that is very obviously blown out with a round brush, you need to ask them if that's something that they do on the regular. Because if they don't do it, they need to realize it's not going to look the same as when they leave the salon versus when they're in charge of it. So every once in a while, maybe like stuff gets lost in translation with a cut, but I would say it's majority of the time it's color.
How often does that happen though, when someone comes in, they hand you a picture of Giselle and they're like, this is what I want.
We also, as women, I feel like we all have muses. And so you'll notice with clients, like they just consistently bring in the same actress. And so Barb calls it the thumb technique, where, they have a bunch of pictures of these hair and she says, okay, put your thumb in front of her face and tell me if you still like it.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, I think you just like her face.
Take out the perfect face.
And I'm so guilty of it too. I mean, and I pick pictures out don't even look like me.
Yeah.
I pick out pictures of Jessica Alba.
Yeah. Great choice.
Like consistently. And it's like, girl, you are so much lighter than her.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when you take their face away, sometimes you really look at the color that you're actually looking at. Because what happens is sometimes someone brings this photo in and they're like, I love this. And it's this beautiful, understated, like softened brunette. And then you get done and they're like, I can't see it. Like, where are the highlights? And you're like, no, that's the thing, is I just gave you the hair that if it was blown out, it's going to be blown out perfectly. And then it's under flash photography. It's going to look just like that.
Yeah.
It's that you're not going to walk around looking like that.
With lights following around.
No. So that's why sometimes
being realistic.
Being really realistic.
Yeah.
Even taking the befores and afters sometimes at the salon is really helpful for clients, because sometimes I think they see it a certain way. And then when they get to see it on video or on photo, they actually see that it really does look a lot like the picture. It's that they're not always seeing it.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to you as a leader. How have you grown as a leader? I know you as a stylist. I mean, you're a talented young lady, and I think all your clients would support that. But when you purchase this business, right, like part of purchasing a business is learning how to be a leader and developing as a leader. How has that changed or evolved over the last 2 to 3 years that you've been owning the business?
Well, it's evolved a lot, that's for sure. I think it's taught me how to be like more outgoing with people. I wouldn't
like saying what's on your mind, outgoing, or outgoing as in just creating an energy and
creating an energy, making sure to keep like a positive light energy, like in the salon, being very mindful of my energy in the space, because in all the years that I've done hair, I have noticed the impact of an owner's energy can have a very big shift in the space.
Yeah.
So I find it very important to have a light energy. I also, I've learned to take a lot of interest in all the girls' careers and any sort of things that they need, like support-wise from me, and how I can support like the girls around me, which before I never did that. I was a rental stylist. I've always just kind of worried about myself, because that's what you normally do. So kind of seeing outside of myself, looking around when someone needs help or assistance, or how if there's like goals that they have, of how I can help them achieve it. And with the putting myself out there, because hiring required me to really put myself out there, which at first was very uncomfortable, but I feel like I've gotten better at it over the course of 2 years. Like, granted, we're full now, and I hired like the newest stylist a year ago, so now we're kind of cruising. But for that first year, I really had to kind of get out of my comfort zone and slide into some DMs.
Ooh. I like the sound of that. So is there a personal pride that's connected to that? So as you become a better leader, like owning a business, it's not just a monetary thing, right? It's not just the money you make. Is there a pride that's connected to being a business owner in town?
Yeah.
And owning the pine?
I think there is. I mean, the number one pride was that Barb even chose me. That was the number one pride. Like, that I feel like is what gave me even the capacity to do it. Knowing that she trusted me, and then also knowing I had the support of you, because I knew I was going to need a lot of that for the actual business part.
Sure.
But yeah, there is a lot of pride. I find it's really filled my cup to work with all these different girls and to see that we all genuinely enjoy each other's company. We all kind of pick each other up. It's like everyone is very supportive. I was having I can't remember what happened, but I was in the salon and I was cleaning the salon up late night, and I was messaging Barb, just like joking around about, I'm like, don't you miss it? Don't you wish you were here? And
she's like, no.
She wrote me the sweetest message, because I think she could feel how, we all second guess ourselves at times, or we all feel like we're not doing good enough. And I feel like I'm in that state a lot. And she just sent to me saying, you're really doing this right. Like, I see the girls hanging outside of the salon. I see everyone doing stuff, and how she's like, everyone's just really connected. And like, at the end of the day, doing good hair is really important, and we pride ourselves on that. But us being really connected and bonded is like, if not, it's like right up there with it. It goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So for me, it's brought me a lot of pride that I've managed. That I managed to kind of tackle the scariest part, and that was finding the right girls to be a part of the space.
And how do you keep those girls? I know you're connected to growth, right? Growth as a stylist. Growth as a human being. I think it's important, whatever you do, to keep on bettering yourself within that profession. How do you keep the girls and yourself constantly growing within hair, within being a stylist? Do you feel like continued education is a major component for any stylist? Because you look out there at a lot of different careers, people get in a career, then they're at neutral at that point, right? And there's not much growth. And you can tell the difference in 5 years between someone who's constantly challenging themselves within an industry and someone who isn't. So how important is that for you and your team, for that constant growth in education of the newest trends or styles or whatever it may be within that industry?
I'd say it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I think it's your duty to your clientele to constantly be learning and pushing yourselves. I think that if you are not learning, then doing hair is going to just feel very monotonous and boring. You need to be excited as an artist. It is an art craft. And if you're just doing the same thing over and over, you're going to lose your luster for it. Where we're at, it's mandatory. It's mandatory that growth is something that you're constantly after in terms of doing hair. So we do a lot of in-house education constantly. That will be geared specifically to what people want to learn.
And what is that? What's in-house education?
It means that Barb will come back and then we'll say, hey, anything anyone want to learn, someone will be like, oh, I want to get better at bobs. I feel like my undercut bob's not that great.
Yeah.
Or I want to get better at balayage, or I want to get better at this. And then we'll just do a super casual night where we come in, any of the girls who want to get better or learn more about that one specific thing, we'll get to watch and ask questions and do whatever. We also hire in educators from all different areas, where that's when we sell tickets to local stylists to be able to come and learn. Those are also really fun, and those will be geared towards kind of specific things, whether it's cuts or colors or, whatever we want to learn even as a salon. But I think it's very important to constantly be challenged and also just like keeping up with the trends. Like, hair's not going to be the same all the time.
No, yeah.
There's always new things. And there's even always new ways to learn how to do the same things, but to do them easier and more efficient. I mean, there's some educators out there who that's their whole mantra is just like how to do this really effortless, beautiful look without like completely working your ass off and being more mindful about your placement. And I think when I hired everyone, that was like the number one question I asked each person was, are you someone who likes to do further education, and how important it is to you in your career? And that was a very important question, because if that wasn't something that was important for that person, they weren't going to be like a right fit for the team.
Yeah, and you've stuck with that the entire last 3 years. There's been that constant push. Do you have to remind stylists of saying like, hey, let's all do something together? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a constant push towards it.
Oh, yeah. And, we learn from each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be formal,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be putting a balayage on and Mila will come over and be like, hey, can I watch? Or, oh, hey, why'd you do that? Or you'll see someone's finished product and be like, hey, what gloss was that? That was really pretty. Like, you can learn on a day-to-day basis, even within the team, just by looking at the girls around you and watching what they do. It doesn't have to be this, I flew on a plane and I went to LA and I did a 3-day boot camp. Like, I think like where most of us are at our careers is we're very good at what we do. It's just we can always be better. So what are the little things we can do to be better? Or just be inspired. Sometimes I just need to be inspired. Sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I just want something to get me excited again. I want someone to make hair exciting again.
So what do you do when you're tired? Like, how do you balance it all, right? You're a mother of 2, you got a 6 and a 5-year-old. They're 17 months apart, 18 months apart.
I don't even know.
They're close. You've got another teenager, which is me, to deal with at home. You've got a salon that not only you're a busy stylist in, you're working, consistently, you're also running a team. What do you do to balance it? Do you balance it?
I don't think I balance it.
Do you need to be better at balancing?
I need to be way better about balancing.
Good. This is a talk I wanted to have. How can you balance it better?
I think managing my own expectations from what my capabilities are would be really important. I think sometimes I take on way too much with with all the best intentions, but it's not plausible to be able to do all of those things. And I want that to always do everything to this certain degree. And sometimes you can't. And I think it's about checking in if the schedule's not feeling plausible, of changing it and asking for help. That's probably number one. I don't ask for help very well. But yeah, I think I'm learning. That's something I still have a lot of work to do in terms of work-life balance. I don't know if it's ever balanced for a mom, to be completely honest.
That's fair.
But I could definitely be better at it.
What would be a perfect day to balance you? So if you had one day that was like, not flying to Fiji, but like an actual day at home or locally, like what's a day that could balance you?
Oh, like a perfect day for me is like a day where I wake up and my house is clean.
Never happens.
Never. I wake up and my house is clean and all my core chores are gone. I work out, come home, work out. Maybe I drive by Stellina and grab a coffee and a treat, go home, hang out, then get out.
With or without your family?
My family's there. But I'm working out and I'm going to Stellina by myself.
Yeah.
But then I come home to my family and, then get outside, go to the beach, go on a hike, just be outside, get the kids outside, go out to I love my late lunches and come home and have a movie night and pizza and hang.
Which we did last night.
Yeah.
And that's just me being stressed. In the kitchen for 30 minutes. We bought this pizza, this really expensive, nice pizza oven called the Halo. And it's literally 35 minutes of me not being able to thin the dough out as well as I want to the point last night, which was probably one of the sweetest things that my son has done in a long time. I'm so stressed trying to get this thing. I'm throwing it. It's not spinning. I'm looking at YouTube clips. It's not working. And he sees how stressed I am. And I cook this pizza. And my boy, who doesn't even like pizza that much, much, comes into the kitchen. I don't know if you heard him. And he goes, he pulls me aside, 6 years old. And he goes, Dad, it's the best pizza I ever had.
Oh.
So he literally saw like the stress levels of me not being able to perfect a dough.
Yeah.
And was like, you know what? I'm going to help this guy out. Like,
Throw
I'm
him a
going to fucking
bone.
throw this guy a bone. And walks in. It made my night. It literally made my night. But yeah, I mean, that's the constant like complex navigation of life with kids, right? Of like trying to leave it at work, doing what's best at home, nothing ever being perfect.
Yeah.
You know, an evolution of just taking it for what it is and trying to make it better. But I mean, I think you've done it phenomenally, like especially with, you know, as much stress. You don't know what a business stress is until you own a business.
Yeah.
And to be able to take that on and keep with your clients and be a great wife and be great with the kids, like you're doing it. You're really doing it.
Well,
you
thank
are.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
are. I know I don't say it enough, except when I write a card. I'm pretty good at writing cards, and then they're really long.
You write the best cards. You write the best cards.
I express that better.
I've
but
kept
you
them
do.
all.
You do a great job. So 30 years from now, right? Like looking back at your life, like what's going to define success through all these things? Like you're already successful, right? You've purchased a business. You've run a successful stylist business. You're a great mom. You're a great wife. But what defines success to you? Like when you reflect, if we're on a beach in San Jose del Cabo, having a margarita, we got a reservation at Flora Farms.
Perfect.
At like 6:30 because we want to get home early.
That's us now.
How do you reflect on that to like what will success be to you?
I think it's a couple of things more than a couple of things for me. I think obviously that we are still happily married and enjoying our retired years, and we're traveling and
Do you want to be
hanging
retired at
out.
that point?
70?
I hope so.
Yes.
God, I hope so. If I've done what I'm supposed to do and you have too.
That would be amazing. So yeah, that's that we, you know, kind of, you know, we survived the chaos of kids and family and businesses and the mayhem of life of raising a family. And now we're in that quieter space of life and that we're still having fun and enjoying each other. And I really hope that that we both have like a really good relationship with our kids and that we're really connected with them.
I hope they live in Sonoma County.
Oh God, if they move away, I'll be devastated.
I know. I'm already thinking of it. They're 6 and 4, and I'm already like, our oldest is girl crazy. I mean, I'm going to tell this story because it happened 2 days ago. We're on the SMART train. We take it up to Larkspur Landing to get some lunch with both my boys, and we're sitting there waiting. An entire cheerleading team, junior high cheerleading team, gets on the SMART train, and as they're walking by, Gunnar, who is 6.5, turns and goes, "Hello," in the most perfect cadence and rhythm. You know, so like he's girl crazy. He's gonna find some young lady at some point, and God, my dream is it happens locally here, and it doesn't take him to New York, but his path's his path.
Yes.
He's going to follow it. I know him well enough. Dax will be here. I have a feeling regardless, our youngest, he won't go more than 2 miles from home, probably ever.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'm here for that.
But that is a dream of mine as well.
I hope, even if they're far, I hope that we just have a really connected relationship with them, a really open, honest, see it for what it is relationship that, you know, when they see me calling on the phone, they're not like, oh, that they want to pick it up and they want to talk to me. I also think success would be that as, you know, they grow up and they have families, hopefully, and marriages, that I have a good relationship with their partners and that their partners feel like I am there to support them and love them just as much as I love my own kids.
Which you have no control of, right? Who they bring into your life.
No. And being a mother-in-law can be an interesting dynamic, you know?
For sure.
It's just a little bit different. I mean, I like to say I learn from the best because your mom is the best. I'm very blessed with a great mother-in-law who I have always felt like truly loved and supported and seen by her, and that it's, you know, you're obviously her son and she loves you and adores you, but she always has made the time and energy in her little ways to make me feel seen and cared about too.
And she'll throw me under the bus too.
She totally will.
Needs to. Yeah.
She's not afraid.
She's earned that.
She's not shy. So I hope I've managed to create those relationships in whoever they decide to move on with their lives with, because that is obviously going to make my relationship with my children as they grow older richer. And then lastly, a perfect scenario for the pine would be that it's still living and that, you know, maybe someone purchased it. One of the girls who worked with me ends up purchasing it, and that it kind of lives on. Like we always strive to be relevant and to stay up with the times and constantly like evolving, that I managed to keep that evolution going throughout the years to where someone still felt like they wanted to keep it alive, and that it wasn't just the salon that just kind of, you know, slowly diffused as I diffused. Yeah, like I kind of want it to just keep going.
And last question on that, will you just stop one day, or will you like take a step back from your workload? So are you going to like work up to a point and be done?
No.
So you think like you'll just slowly kind of dwindle away your workload until it's time? Yeah,
like a perfect scenario is that I still own the pine. I still do a little bit of hair here and there, like the hair that brings me joy, old time clients. I do love doing it so much that it will be probably hard for me to let go of, but I'm not doing it to the extent that I'm doing it now. And then I can just be there to support the team and support the girls and maybe help newer stylists who are growing. I like to evolve to being a little bit more in the shadows and not necessarily on the floor, but I still think I will slowly diffuse out of actually doing hair.
Well, we did it. I think it's over an hour. Lindsay Ward, business owner, amazing stylist, amazing mother, amazing wife. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I'll see you at like 5:15. Have a good day.
You too.
All right.